The other day, as I was driving in my car, I heard a radio talk show host talking about the Olympics. As he was talking, he was sort of lamenting the Olympics as a glorification of the body. And he asked, where's the glorification of the human mind? Or is all that our society is concerned with is the human body? And in many ways, I could sit here and agree with him and say, yes, we do tend to overly focus on our bodies in our society today. My question that I started thinking about was, is there any way in which the Olympics can be useful to us as Catholics? Is it a springboard to a greater conversation? I think it is. As I thought about this, I remembered that the Vatican recently opened an office related to sports and gaming, which to me is a way of the Vatican admitting that there's some connection between sports and our life of faith, that the one can be used as a springboard to the other. And so I began to think, how is it that the Olympics can be a springboard for us as Catholics? And one of the things that I thought this commentator was a little off the mark on is when he talked about this being purely a glorification of the body, the Olympics as being a glorification of the body. One of the things that I think he missed was the fact that so much of the Olympics is a mental competition too. For team sports, or for numerous sports actually, there's all kinds of strategy involved. And then you think of the different head games that are played where the athletes are trying to get into each other's heads in these mental games that they play with each other as a way of winning the competition. And what we begin to see is that the person who's able to integrate their strength, their physicality, their bodily existence with mental strength and the best strategy is the one who achieves greatness and achieves the gold medal. They win the Olympic competition. And this is, I think, what John Paul started to get at with theology of the body. One of the things that John Paul was adamant about in writing Theology of the Body was that our bodies are not arbitrary. So I think that's what the commentator missed when he kind of said this is just a glorification of the body, is he began to treat our bodies as if they're not really that important. And John Paul says that's a great mistake for us to do as human beings. As human beings, we're composed of mind, body, and soul. And we can only achieve greatness when all three of those are integrated and giving glory to God. And I think the Olympics begins to show us that. It doesn't reach its fullness. Certainly there's no spiritual component to the Olympics, I would argue. But I think that what we can say is we begin to see in the Olympics that there needs to be more than just our bodily existence. So much of the competition, as I mentioned, involves strategy and having a good mental composure as well. And I think that we can say that the people who have the best training, the best physical training, as well as the best mental training, are the ones who achieve greatness. And in a similar way, we can use this as a springboard for a conversation with our secular world saying, see, it's not just, though, mind and body that need to come together, it's the entirety of our humanity, which means our soul as well. And we have to treat all three of these things with a dignity. We can't treat any of them as if they're arbitrary. So often we treat our bodies as if they're arbitrary, and we use them for marketing purposes and so many other things, where it becomes like it's an object that we have, but not something that's really who we are. Or sometimes we can do the same thing with our minds. We can begin to say, we're going to glory in our achievements that we've accomplished with the human mind, and we forget that there has to be a spirituality behind that everything that we have comes from God, and we need to be humbled in our mental achievements sometimes as well. So I think as Catholics, what we can do is use these Olympic Games as a springboard for a greater conversation with the world about who we are as human beings. We're not just these physical bodies, nor are we just purely minds, or are we purely souls. We're a combination of all three, integrated as a whole. And if we want to achieve greatness, that's what we need to do, is to integrate the whole. And then we can begin to talk about our liturgy. Notice how well our liturgy does this. Our liturgy takes seriously our minds, our bodies, and our souls. So much of our liturgy in Catholic worship is physical. We could think of the Eucharist itself, or all the sacraments have a physical component to it. And then all the different postures and gestures. Marge Simpson humorously states that the Catholic Church is like a game of Simon Says with no winner because of all these standing, sitting, and kneeling. But these gestures become important for us. Certainly we can say we've got a great intellectual tradition that informs our liturgy. We can look at all the philosophies that have come up throughout the ages that the Catholic Church has given to the world. We can certainly think of people like Thomas Aquinas, the great intellectual powerhouse that he was, and what he gave to the Catholic Church and how some of that's been incorporated into our liturgies. And certainly spirituality is an important part of our liturgy too, that relationship with Jesus Christ. And we see all of that coming together as we worship in the Catholic Church. So the Catholic Church does take seriously the fact that we need to be integrated mind, body, and soul, and that only in integrating our mind, body, and soul will we achieve greatness. So I think that the Olympic Games can be something that we can all certainly enjoy, just for this sport, but I think also it can help us to start a conversation with the world about the fact that we need to be integrated as a whole, just as the Olympic athletes need to integrate their intellectual capacity along with their physical strength. So too, we as people, as human beings, need to integrate our bodies, our minds, and our souls, and put that to use for the glory of God.